Hello and welcome to the Codec Moments Podcast. I'm Andy Brown at Clinical Andy on Twitter, and joining me today is Dr. Matthew Holt.
Hello!
Hello. Now, interestingly enough, I've got a hard stop in about half an hour, and Ali's computer has basically chosen this moment to reboot. So, fittingly enough, today we wanted to talk about co-op shooters.
We did, inspired by the new Wolfenstein game.
Yeah, we're going to treat this as a drop-in, drop-out co-op. So, if I disappear at some point and then Ali drops in, that's why. We've explained it now. It'll make sense at the time.
It will, and I'm just hoping I'm not left on my own talking to myself.
Yeah, especially not if, all the bosses and the bad guys level up.
Yeah, that'd be not very nice at all.
So let's talk a little bit about Wolfenstein then.
Yes, we've got a new Wolfenstein game coming, Youngblood, which is due out on the 26th of July. It's a couple of weeks after we're recording this. And its selling point is co-op gameplay. It's a follow-on, kind of, I think, from the new Colossus. It's about right, isn't it? Where BJ's gone missing in Paris and his twin daughters are basically going to go and find him and rescue him because they think he's been kidnapped.
Yeah, and it sounds as bad crazy as Wolfenstein normally is.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely gone down the nuts route for a while, and this isn't alleviating any of that at all. But it's got a bit of an 80s vibe to it, hasn't it? It's the new order progressed by another couple of decades, and that's kind of what's really intriguing about it. It's like Blade Runner with Nazis.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, you look at the artwork for it, and they're really leaning into the 80s Stranger Things vibe as well. Creepy twins, and I don't know.
He's looking interesting.
I think they're cashing in on that wave of 80s nostalgia that we have at the moment. Funnily enough, that just as an aside, my daughter went to an 80s themed birthday party the other weekend.
Ooh.
And she dressed up in neon and had like leg warmers and a headband. And do you know what she called herself?
Go on, tell me.
She said, "Mummy, Daddy, I am an olden days dancer." So there we go. Officially the olden days to a 5-year-old.
Well, I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, this is what the fourth 80s revival we've had since the 80s. It comes around every 5 years.
So I suppose the most interesting thing, and this is why we're talking about it today, about Youngblood, is that because it's twins, they've managed to shoehorn in co-op multiplayer.
Yeah, it's a really interesting premise, though, for it, in that if you get the deluxe edition of the game, which is basically everything that's getting released on the release day, you get a buddy pass, which you can give to one friend at a time who can play the full game in co-op with you without having to buy the game.
So this is not unlike the scheme that they had in Far Cry 4.
Where you downloaded the standalone version and you could play co-op. Is that what you did?
You had to have the was it the mountain pass or whatever it was from?
Yes, that's it. And did you have to give that to
the Kiryat mountain pass or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. I forget what we had to do with that, because I think actually we both bought the game anyway, so we didn't have to worry about the mountain pass thing. But it was a nice way of doing it to encourage you to have a second player with you rather than carrying on with a bit of an AI companion, which this new Wolfenstein does let you do. If you don't like friends, then you can play on your own and just go nuts. It's going to be bloody, it's going to be messy, it's going to be over the top, ridiculously violent. It's the type of game you want to share with someone.
And also, it's going to be non-linear.
Yeah, they pulled in the guys who did Dishonored, haven't they? They've pulled in support from Arcane Studios. I'm not expecting open world, but I am expecting multiple routes and maybe some interesting stuff to do.
Yeah, which is always something the series has done well anyway.
It has managed to put a lot of variety in, but the guided progress has definitely been one of the elements that it's twofold, isn't it? It secures it back in its roots of the original games, but then it allows a more creative narrative for the studio to push on you and ensure that you're getting the most out of it. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this and how that non-linearity actually manifests itself and whether it means multiple things to experience or encourages replaying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm interested to see whether it will carry over the kind of hub world design from the previous games with the Resistance headquarters or the submarine, or if you're going to get a more kind of straightforward menu based approach.
You know what, really liked the submarine element of the last game. The section of it, and it's not really a spoiler now, but if you haven't played the New Colossus and you really don't want to know anything at all, cover your ears for about 3 minutes. But there's the level, isn't it, where you think you're in the hub, but actually you end up going off on a mission around the ship and find the sealed off areas that the Nazis are hiding in.
Yeah.
And that was really lovelily done. And it's quite early on in the game as well, which was really surprising to do something that bold and brash and then put you back into your hub area, which contains secrets and other things for you to do, as well as wait for your next mission.
Yeah, lots of collectibles and things to find. And
the big secret door with the timer.
Machines. Oh, yeah, the secret door with the timer.
Yeah, which was slightly disappointing when it did open up. Because it was just kind of challenges and things. But it was a nice idea to keep people coming back for, I think, about 2 weeks after release. You know, what's behind the door kind of thing. They did some really nice things. So I am really looking forward to this. And it's a budget game as well. It's not a full-on £45-50 affair. I think it's 30. Or it might even be 25. So, you know, yeah, low entry point, free co-op. Basically 2 of you could get the game, you know, you could take halves on it, 15 quid each. I think it's a really nice idea. And you've actually mentioned, and I think I had completely forgotten about this, but they aren't the first, that Far Cry 4 one. And if I remember rightly, was that the first of the Far Cry series that had co-op?
Well, Far Cry 3 had its own co-op missions that you could do, because I remember they were rock hard, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to do one just before New Year's one year, I think.
I can't even remember them. They must have been really hard.
You played as different characters who were like stuck on the island. So like, one of them was a ship captain, I think, and one of them I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, it was an interesting take on it. And then Far Cry 4, opened up like proper co-op to take on the bases, wasn't it? The outposts.
You could do the full. Could you do the full story missions in co-op? Or could you only do the outpost assaults? I remember us being able to play around in the open world without really worrying about too much, but I can't remember if that's just because we were driving around messing about. Yeah,
it was if I remember rightly, it was the side missions and the outposts, but you couldn't actually do the story missions.
Okay. So it was specific content.
And you could wander the open world, but you, for some reason, you couldn't progress the plot. I can't think why, either logically or technically, that would be a thing, but there must have been some limitation on it. Yeah. And then, of course, Far Cry 5 opened up the whole of the world in the game, which was great. And one of the ones I've been recently, and it's interesting you make the point about Youngblood being, you know, co-op driven game, nice accessible price point, and that instantly made me think of Far Cry New Dawn.
Yes, neon themed as well.
Yeah, I mean,
neon pink. It is. It smacks of it, doesn't it? Because New Dawn came out earlier this year, £30 price point, and co-op.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I don't know what you thought. I'm really enjoying New Dawn to the extent that I really wanted to do it as a Codec Momentum, but I suspect I'm going to platinum it before my 90 days is up. At this rate,
might well do. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think it's got some stuff that it doesn't do as well as previous Far Cry games, but actually it's a tighter focus. And after the sprawl that was Far Cry 5, it's actually quite refreshing.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I found, you know, with limited time and everything else, I found Far Cry 5 was like the first game in the series that I found overwhelming in that respect. Because there was just too many people to go and collect, too many side missions to do, too many other things to distract you. And it was like, I know that's a big open world problem, and you know, for years we've complained about these Ubisoft games where with repetitive things and the same kind of, you know, climb this tower, unlock a portion of the map.
Yeah.
Which it lampshades in the first, you know, 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it does, definitely.
But in a way, a lot of these Ubisoft open world games have just gone to the other extreme for me now. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have a lot more time that can deal with that. But I've played God knows how much Wildlands, and I still feel I'm only about 20% of the way into it.
Yeah. It's the same. It's just so much to do. And New Dawn stripped it back. It took the full map, but you can't go everywhere. And it's added in sort of a retooled landscape in some parts as well, hasn't it, to cope with the events of the end of Far Cry 5, or the end if you did a certain ending, which obviously is now canon.
Yeah, and it's lovely because it does feel significantly different. And there's what I found was there'd be a moment where you'd be like, "Oh, I remember this bit now," but it genuinely was different enough to be interesting.
It was. The piece that I'm not keen on is the leveling up side of things and how often you have to do things. It's a nice idea to give you more to do, but it does feel a little bit like filler to say, well, this is really a 15-hour game, but we're going to make it 25.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, having to do everything thrice. The rule of threes.
It is. It's 3 stars. You need to get your 3 stars. That's basically what it's doing with the outposts and the expeditions in particular. But then the ability to continue doing them if you happen to want to farm more resource, or if there's one you find easier than the others. It's got some plus points for that mechanic, but it doesn't bring you into it particularly easily, does it? I think no. I found I felt completely underpowered for such a long time.
Yeah,
because I hadn't twigged what I needed to do.
I'll go with that as well. And I think the other thing it does is it progresses the story at a certain pace. And if you're not going off and doing all the side missions and doing the outposts and the expeditions, I think the story can kind of get ahead of you in a way. Like you said, with your weapons and your leveling up. And that kind of made me fall into the grind quite early. I didn't find it that grindy until I got towards the elite weapons, and then because I've been trying to play through the story, and I've been trying to do other things, and then all of a sudden I realised that I didn't have any carbon fibre, and I didn't have any circuit boards because I'd not been doing enough expeditions and outposts.
Yeah, because it's the fuel from the outposts that I found, because I found quite necessary, because I was doing the base upgrade to try and improve that, and you find yourself a bit locked out of it for a long while. When you do start levelling the weapons up, and you've done a few outposts and a few expeditions, you can buy pretty much what you want. You find what you like. You do tend to stick with them. Particularly on the elite level, I don't think there's as much variety, actually, on the highest level of weapons.
And that's the irony, because there's about 3 times as many weapons available in that tier, and yet so much repetition.
Yeah, it is it's like they're just reskinned weapons, actually, for some of them. In fact, some of them are. You need to collect legendary animal skins to create them, but they have no stat difference.
I worked out what it is.
Go on then.
It's basically the ones where you have to collect the legendary animal for just costs you less in other parts.
Is that all?
That's all it is. Yeah. So it's basically an economy in hunting monstrous animals.
I didn't spot that, because I didn't buy that many of them in the end, because I just stuck with the standards, because I had enough resource kicking around. But then when you do hit the elite point, as long as you've done everything else you want to do, you can then continue to upgrade your weapons as long as you've got the fuel to do it.
Yeah, that's nice, and it's a nice touch that you can upgrade any weapon at that point, even the earlier tiers. Not that you'd have any actual need to, but you could if you felt so inclined.
You say that because there's not a rocket launcher in the elite tier.
Oh, you've got grenade launchers, haven't you?
I went back and I upgraded the rocket launcher, the one that lets you switch to cluster bomb ammo, and I used that an awful lot during the expeditions. When you're flying away on a helicopter, it's a lot of fun.
But I think that's the other thing, and this is the key things. If you're going to have a co-op shooter and you want to have fun with it, you need this kind of ridiculous level design, the over-the-top enemies, and you need crazy weapons.
Yeah.
And New Dawn has that in abundance, and I suspect Youngblood is going to be, cut from the same cloth.
Right. They've always had the nutcase weapons, don't they? They've always had the absolutely insane power behind it. I definitely think it is going to be. I will say one thing for New Dawn, though. The expeditions did seem very much designed for co-op, given that the structure of them is get in, stealth your way to an objective, steal an item, get out without being seen, but then have a last stand, as it were, whilst you're waiting for extraction.
Yeah.
And that was pure co-op fodder.
It was nice, and I must say the number of times I've ended up just thinking, oh, I'm just going to leave them there to die in terms of my AI partner in the expeditions. Like, you're slowing me down. I've got a helicopter to get to.
It definitely works with another person when you can say, cover that arc, I've got this way, try different routes in. It's great. It works well with the story mode, because we did a few story missions in co-op, didn't we?
Yeah, and I really want to go back to it as well, because it's just not. And there are weapons. The thing I found about it, especially in the expeditions and stuff, there are weapons that turn the tide, like the saw launcher that fires multiple blades.
Yes,
and the saw launcher that you get to the elite level and you've got one that can lock on to people.
Yeah,
and actually in co-op, having somebody lay down a bit of fire from like a massive machine gun while you have time to lock on to several bad guys would be really advantageous.
Yes. Yeah, and that is actually a very, very handy weapon, particularly against the elite guards, because it does an awful lot of damage.
But it's Far Cry. It does that usual thing. It gives you all the tricks and the perks, and whilst it's not as kind of the perk system isn't as fleshed out as the earlier games, especially Far Cry 5, it's got this boiled down, this reduced down perk system that kind of gives you those takedowns and the extra takedowns, kind of almost combined, isn't it? As you go through the levels, so you unlock the master or the elite level takedowns, and it gives you the sidearm takedown and the melee weapon takedown at the same time.
It doesn't make you do everything individually. It just says, well, you can do it.
It's a really nicely refined version of a Far Cry game. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it.
The only story criticism, and we won't ruin anything, is it's the twins who are your main opponents during the game. They're just not quite as sinister as everyone else you've come across in the Far Cry game. They are part of a countrywide collective that are spreading out and taking over areas. They don't feel personal. It feels corporate to a degree.
I never really thought of that, because you don't get a sense of whether they're the absolute top of the tree or not, do you?
You do as you go through. If you read a lot of the notes, particularly if you're doing the expeditions, you do understand that these are people being sent out everywhere, and you just end up thinking, well, actually, you two are just messing around. You're having a bit of fun. You're destroying our livelihood and you're destroying us, but actually, where's the threat? The real threat is completely unseen.
Yeah, and in going back to the expeditions, what an interesting way of adding kind of variety and kind of really well crafted set pieces to an otherwise open world game.
Oh yeah. You know what it felt like? It took the mission. The mission from 5, where is it one of Herc's relatives who's got the flamethrower, and it's at like the trailer park, and you have to defend the trailer park.
Yeah, I know exactly the one you mean. Yeah,
it feels
while
the
music plays.
That's it. It feels a little bit like that. They've gone, how do we turn this into a standalone mission? I know. Let's have a downed plane that you've got to scavenge. Let's have it done at a theme park. Let's have that. I'll be honest, the first one, the ship, is inspired.
It's great.
The aircraft carrier.
But they are really nicely crafted little snippets, just little, Yeah,
they are cool. However, and this is where I think Youngblood might differ in its co-op approach. With Far Cry, you're both, because it's open world, always going to the same place. You're always pretty much working together the entire time. I suspect Youngblood might start splitting you up and making you take different routes, especially if it's the non-linear elements.
Well, that's an interesting twist on the co-op gameplay.
So I think you'll have sections where you have to work together. There'll be almost like a horde mentality, and defending an assault off, but I suspect it will make you split up and it will make you deal with things in a particular way. And it might be one character needs to do one thing whilst another does another, special abilities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Or even one character needs to do something so the other can progress.
Yes. Yeah. I'm looking forward to see what it does on that.
I'm quite excited for it now.
Yeah. And as I've got it on pre-order, you don't even need to worry about buying it.
I mean, there was a time when slapping on multiplayer and co-op was just the kind of done thing, and it was paid lip service. I mean, I personally get the feeling that the tide's now turning, and these things are being baked into the game design at a much earlier point.
I think they are for the games that we see with co-op. I still don't think we see a lot of co-op games. There's still slim pickings out there, really. And I think if you went back a decade, maybe even a touch longer, where there wasn't the presence of the online services that there are now, you had a lot of couch co-op. And I think games built those in very well. And then as it's moved to the online, I think they have struggled to understand exactly what you can do with online co-op. I think some games still do it really well, but Far Cry has taken 4 games to get to it. It has worked in the other games. It's just they've either been specific missions or you couldn't do the story elements. Now you could do a total story in 2-player. But then you have got other games that have done it all right. Is it the Call of Juarez series? Were they always co-op?
I don't think I've ever played Call of Juarez. I mean, I know Army of Two was always good.
Yes, Army of Two. But was that online co-op or was it couch? Because we played it couch, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, you might be right. Portal 2.
Portal 2, that was very good.
Probably the finest co-op experience ever.
Yeah, actually, in terms of slick design.
In terms of having to actually communicate and coordinate your efforts, I think that absolutely nailed the elements of what a co-op game should strive for.
Now we're thinking back, and it's arguably that is co-op gaming perfection, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't get much better than that, because you could do that game with a co-op partner without a headset.
You could, because they had the pointers implemented and the hand gestures and stuff the robots could make. Yeah, that was good.
You could communicate what you wanted without having to speak.
Yeah, but put a portal over there. Yeah, no, you could do that, couldn't you? Just by gesturing and using markers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a question. So if you're listening to this and you're now reminiscing about co-op games, past, present, future, is there anything that has done the kind of technical co-op better than Portal 2?
Yeah, I'd like to hear some arguments for that, because as a game, it is superbly done. As a co-op experience, it's a must play. It is a must play.
And here's the thing: do you think the co-op experience is better if it's kind of finely crafted, guided, linear almost, or is the open world element the way to go? Because I'm thinking about these experiences. Portal 2, you have a series of rooms which you've got to work your way through. What are other good things? The expeditions, we like those. They're small little vignettes of the Far Cry New Dawn world. And the other one that suddenly struck me is Spec Ops in Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, very tightly scripted scenarios to complete that demanded practice in a lot of cases.
Was it more fun because you really had to work together as a team, and don't get me wrong, I love the Far Cry open world games, especially in co-op. I think they're brilliant. But actually, when you're working with someone, does that structure help? Does the forcing you to actually communicate and work tactically, does it make for a better gaming experience?
I think it does, because I'm drawn to think about, you've mentioned it already, Wildlands. As a co-op game, you have to both. In fact, can you have up to 4 people in Wildlands? You have 4 on a team.
Yep.
So, however many of you are, we've tended to do it as a 2 or occasionally as a 3, if we're getting our ass handed to us by the Predator.
Yeah.
It forces you to think tactically about the scenarios that you're going into, doesn't it? You do end up, and you do need massive amounts of communication with that one. Was Battlefield 4 co-op?
Oh.
Because I'm sure at some point we've played a Battlefield game that had co-op elements.
No.
No, well, there was something I swear we've played. Unless it was...
Oh, no, wait. Yeah, no, there was... Was it... Yeah, there was definitely... I'm remembering, because there's like... Is there like a mission in Paris where
Yes.
one of you has to be a sniper and...
Yeah, and you have to work your way through the buildings.
Yeah.
I thought it was 4. It might not be. It could have been 3.
Yeah, it was 3. It was Battlefield 3.
3. It was 3. It wasn't 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I vaguely remember that one.
Yeah. It's that kind of stuff. It's like Sniper Elite with the spotter Overwatch kind of missions, and where you take on different roles and you have to do different things. I think those tend to make really good co-op experiences because like I say, you have to communicate, but you have to think about what you're doing, and you're both not doing the same thing. Or if there's more of you, take the Lego games. The Lego games with their drop in and drop out.
Speaking of which,
we have a drop in player. Hello.
Come to, was it chew bubblegum and something else?
You might need to be quite specific on that.
And something
well, yeah,
else.
I know, but I thought it's family friendly, so I didn't want to bleep it out. So, yeah. Chew bubblegum and
to be honest,
kick
if
some
you're
bricks.
going to have you're going to have to turn your camera off because we don't want to watch that. So, our lovely Ali Cornwall has joined us and dropped in, and we're talking co-op games.
Yeah, essentially what's happened is our podcast has become a debate on whether co-op games should be kind of more linear, tightly crafted experiences that encourage tactics and teamwork, or whether open world chaos is better.
Well, it depends whether it's couch co-op or not, just to add that extra element, because I can honestly say, hopefully she can't hear me, playing Lego with my wife is a nightmare because she'll go one way and I'll go the other.
Do you know, I tried to play Overcooked with my wife once.
No, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I can see how
you've not played it with my wife.
But, okay.
I'll step in somewhere in the middle that we played Overcooked 2 together, and actually that's what I based the review on. It worked all right.
I quite like the Hitman sniper missions where you can do those co-op. Where there's a bit of teamwork in it. Because I've played that on the PC on Hitman 2 with my mate, and it's you have to like time your shots and different things like that to get the kills to make sure. And you watch one of you could take someone out, and the other one can be watching the map. And if they go, he spotted you, bang, he's gone. Right, we've avoided that.
We played quite a lot. Were we like 17th in the world or something stupid like that at one point?
We were on the sniper challenge before Hitman 2 came out. We did all right on that, but that was communication and lots of 3, 2, 1.
lots of starting over.
Yeah, restart.
I mean, are you classing Rainbow Six as that kind of co-op, or is that pushing
We've kind of not gone down that route, but it has crossed my mind. It's a co-op game. We sort of talked Wildlands. We've talked obviously lots of Far Cry New Dawn. Which was a bit about Wolfenstein and what that's going to offer up. But then Portal, actually, we were talking Portal 2 for what that does. And I don't think there's necessarily a right answer, because I'm thinking about how much, I'll go back to Portal 2, how much I enjoyed doing that in co-op and figuring out the puzzles. But then I seem to remember the vast majority of Far Cry 5 co-op time was sticking C4 to each other and running away.
Yeah, a bit like
there was quite a lot of that, wasn't there? Yeah.
Or because you can't kill each other in Far Cry 5, there's no friendly fire unless you stick C4 on the vehicle your partner is driving and blow them up.
Yeah, I killed Andy on Ghost Recon.
Yeah, it was the moment. That another interesting way of killing your co-op partner in Far Cry 5 is getting out of the aeroplane
mid-flight
while your mate's a passenger behind you. That was terrifying. I've genuinely never felt as much like I was in an actual air crash as that day. It was awful. If that had been in VR, I think I'd have actually died.
Yeah, when you forget what button is slow down and you climb out.
Here's one for you that you've probably don't realise or never come across as such. So there is such a thing as co-op in a racing game. So iRacing, you you can have a spotter, and you can either have the computer do it, or you can allow someone that's in the lobby watching, like spectating, to be your spotter. So technically kind of co-op, so they can tell you how far, a bit like a race engineer, how far behind or in front you are, and even go to the IndyCar that, you're free on your left, free on your right and stuff like that. So that's got that kind of level of co-op as well.
I've always wondered if a proper rally game where you had a co-op partner as your navigator is there any way of making that actually work?
A bit like Keep Talking and Nobody Dies, whatever it's called.
Now that is a brilliant example.
That is a fantastic example. But I'm going to pull you back to the rallying because Dirt Rally VR had exactly that.
Oh, right.
So the person in the VR headset driving gets the pace notes from the second player. And the second player, it's a mini game that they have to do to get the pace notes to come up correctly. And if you're no good at mini games, you drive into walls a lot.
That's quite evil, but I like it. That's a good way of making that work. But yeah, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes is another classic example of brilliant co-op and where you have to communicate.
So that's great in same room, but we did it at distance. You went the whole hog. You printed out the bomb notes. You found some overalls, got yourself a bit of a sweat on, and
honestly, that's the most. It was honestly, yeah. So my daughter was just kind of sat watching cartoons on the iPad while we did this absolutely ridiculous thing.
I mean, you went full role play with that. In fairness, I'm at the other end of the line, telling him what I can see, and all I get is a wait one.
Yeah, way out.
Has it got a yellow wire?
People's lives are at stake.
In fairness, I don't think we blew up.
No,
I don't remember
think we did. Yeah.
That's a cracking example. I've forgotten all about that. That's a great game.
Yeah, there are some amazing games out there.
And I think the love of co-op, sometimes you can actually lean towards doing things cooperatively as well. And I think back to the F1 races we were doing last year, because we would always pick teammates. Yes, we were trying to beat each other, but actually we would work as teammates a lot of the time. And try and really beat the competition, bring the team forward. And that doesn't really seem to exist in many, well, definitely not in a racing game that I've come across. Now, that iRacing is about the closest I think I've ever heard of.
Yeah. And obviously you've got games like, I don't know if you've already mentioned it, but World War Z and things like that, where you've got to, as long as you've not got the run and gunners with you, where you've got to work together to lock down an area.
Yes.
And, hunker down and stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I think that from what we're saying here and the examples you brought, Ali, it does actually feel like if you've got an objective, it ends up being more memorable. But the chaos from an open world and just dicking around.
This is interesting because Wildlands. There's a few things that I remember that we've really worked tactically on, and the Sam Fisher level was one of them. The one which you mentioned earlier, like some of the infiltration stuff and the Predator stuff. That's pretty memorable. But a lot of that, as you said, was just us f***ing around. Language. Yeah. And the same with Far Cry 5. The thing that I really remember about doing Far Cry 5 with you, Matt, was that time we ended up trying to kill each other and just invoke the power of bears.
Yeah, they just turned up, didn't they?
But there's other games which are far more tightly crafted where you actually remember exactly the beats that you took because you did them 3 or 4, 5 or 6 times over and over again to do that. I've got to drop out now, actually, because my...
Right, well, it's been lovely having you on. See you later.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
So I guess one thing that neither of you may have mentioned that I know you've played, I think with Kevin Justin, which is Star Trek.
Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Which I've not had a chance to play with you guys yet, but yeah, that's...
Well, we've got the Enterprise Edition add-on thing, the DLC that came out for the next generation, and we haven't actually done that yet, so there is an opportunity.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that is a superb communication game.
Yeah. And I think for me, I love co-op games. I love... sometimes just going in and letting your hair down. And like you say, in the open world, and just, you've had a hard day at work or a hard week at work. Sometimes you just want to have a couple of beers with your mates and let's just go crazy on Grand Theft Auto and see what mischief we can get up to. or on Red Dead and stuff like that. But then I do like the challenge of the co-op games where you have an objective and you've got to do something, you've got to work at it. Because I think I guess it's different levels of fun, but also different levels of objectives.
Yeah.
I think when you've got an actual objective to do, it can be a right laugh. But then again, on Grand Theft Auto, sometimes I've never laughed so hard playing that game when one of the guys just you could have played it for 100 hours, but someone accidentally presses the wrong button and suddenly jumps out the car. You know what you're doing? We're going 120 miles an hour down a freeway. And it's stuff like that when you're playing co-op that I think is that organic that can't be scripted when you're playing single player games and whatnot, especially the likes of Grand Theft Auto, where someone will just do something stupid.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but it's good fun, you know. But then you've got all the RPG games as well, MMORPGs, so World of Warcraft and stuff like that, where you have to work together to take down some of the bosses. And
I suppose this is turning us around. A comment we'd made before you joined us was I felt that as we've moved to a more online focused set of games, we'd kind of lost the co-op because the couch co-op wasn't there. Yeah, actually, you're right. There are a lot of co-op inspired games that you forget, like you say, World of Warcraft, I think Elder Scrolls Online, all of that kind of stuff. They are co-op games, but because they're classed as the MMOs, you kind of forget that.
Yeah, even stuff like Monster Hunter, Destiny 2.
Yes, a lot of that is there. Borderlands. All of them, they are there, and you just kind of forget. And we're sort of saying, well, it's disappeared and it's sort of making a comeback. Well, that's not true at all, is it? It's there.
I think we take it for granted, and the fact that you can play, you know, I've got friends in America like Nick that we both know from Film Guff. I can play technically a co-op game with him, and he's in New York, so it's still a co-op game. It's just someone's flicked that switch that's then broadened that horizon to say, you can play with your pen pal that you've had since the early 90s now in a game that you've always talked about and swapped letters about or whatever. But now you can actually do that. And, you know, even us recording a podcast, we're talking to each other, what are we, 150 miles apart? Obviously not yourself and Andy as such.
About 70 or 80, I think we are.
Yeah.
But extreme, but reasonable distance.
You know, I think we take it for granted and forget that, yes, the couch co-op stuff's there, but it was a nightmare back in the day because the cables just got tangled up. They were everywhere. It stunk in that room. You know, sweaty teenagers in a room or whatever you were when you was at uni and stuff. And it's just like, oh, yeah, you just...
Yeah, you've
got your space.
Yeah. Yeah, you can sprawl out on your own and still have almost the same fun. There's a special place for couch co-op and being able to abuse people in person.
Yeah, I mean, doing stupid stuff in GoldenEye, like playing hostage, and that, you know, your mate won't sit there and pretend to be the hostage. Look, just sit there in the toilet and be the hostage. Someone's coming to save you. Start slapping everyone. You know.
So no, I think it's fair. Yeah, co-op hasn't been anywhere. We've been looking in the wrong places. I think. I think the core sort of mainly 2-player sort of scripted co-op. I think that because that's the Wolfenstein thing that's brought us to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's harder to find. But you're right. You can go out and make your own co-op games if you want in a number of the online stuff now.
Yeah. And you've there's that I can never remember the name of it. Is it Inside or whatever it's called? That EA game where it was 2-player co-op.
A Way Out.
A Way Out. Yeah, that me and Andy still need to have a go at. But you know,
very specifically a 2-player game where you've
But you don't get many of them these days.
No. I don't think you get a lot of core co-op only, but I think there are more with co-op in them, which is, you know, fantastic.
Was the Uncharted game, the latest one, was that co-op, or did that just? I didn't get a chance to play it. I've not got around to buying that.
The Lost Legacy, or no, Lost Legacy. I don't think it was.
Oh, okay.
I didn't play it in it. If it was, I only played it on my own because I thought it was a core single player that they'd done.
Because that'd be an awesome type of game. Just, you know, kind of go into that next level of thinking about different games. But having something like Uncharted or Tomb Raider or that kind of Indiana Jones-esque type of game where there's two of you to solve a puzzle and one of you's got to hold a lever for the other one to get through somewhere. That'd be
we
right.
were wondering if Youngblood might go down that route and offer up different routes and different things you have to do. I think the issue with the Tomb Raider and Uncharted is how do they maintain their cinematic experience with two individual characters? And I know some games have done it, but then you do get some which just badly implement it and they make the co-op character just disappear and has never existed in the cutscenes. It probably wouldn't happen like that now. It's the game design's more sophisticated and the storytelling is as well,
and the actual mechanics behind it. So like when you play Destiny 2 and things like that, you wait for someone else, you wait for everyone to finish that cutscene.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So the technology's there now.
Yeah. So the co-op stuff, pulling it right back to what we were saying at the beginning, Wolfenstein Youngblood, definitely looking forward to, because it's a Wolfenstein game. It'll be ludicrous and it will be fun. The co-op stuff is an added bonus. But there's also a second Wolfenstein game coming out on the same day called Cyberpilot. So it's a VR title where you get to pilot some of the vehicles and things that we've seen in the games, like the Panzerhund, which is the big robot dog thing that breathes flames. And I am intrigued on what it's going to be like. I've pre-ordered it because Wolfenstein. That,
and it's cheap, isn't it? Both games together cost less than 40 quid.
Yeah, because the VR game is 12, I think. I think I've got it for 12. I think it's about 15 usually, and the other one is 30. So it's two games for the price of a full price game. So I'm going to see what it's like. Will it be any good? The fact that we really don't know anything about it and it's a bit of hide the gameplay since they announced it makes me think that maybe they haven't got a lot of faith in it. But we'll see. We'll see what that's like.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's it. Wolfenstein. 2 new games on the 26th of July, and we love co-op.
Yeah.
Right. So thanks for listening. We will be back next week with what we had said would be a birthday live broadcast. But it's not going to be. Unfortunately, we can't make the live broadcast work at the moment. Not through the technology breaking, but through just timing schedules and availability. It's actually going to be really tough. So we are going to do a cheap and nasty best of episode. So if you've got favourite moments from the last 6 years of Codec Moments, let us know, and we'll think about featuring them in next one.
Lovely.
And on that note, thank you very much and goodbye.
In a bizzle.